Stoddle, any big surprises so far?
Well, you said that, but the ones that both myself and Collins picked out are unfortunately the team currently in last place. So I have to call that out as my big surprise. I was expecting a lot more from Fritteris and Show coming into this. Without having run all the numbers in the 3-minute break that we had, I think they still have an outside chance of qualifying, but it will need to be something in the region of a first, second place in both of these remaining lobbies now.
That's right. I did take the last 2 lobbies as a bit of a break, grab some food and check out what was happening. And lo and behold, it was Silvername with Caligos again. Yep. It just seems like he just always has a thing, whether it's in Constructed and just jamming Highlander Mage every week for an entire season. And now here in Battlegrounds, just always making sure to have the dragon. So we'll find out if that's still possible when we get word on the bans. But we do, of course, have to focus on Show and Fritteris because, like you said, they are the underdogs right now. They have to catch up and show whether Rafam already looks like a good start. But Malygos is an interesting one.
It is. Certainly would suggest that no top-tier heroes were being offered here because Malygos is one of those mid-tier picks that you're never ecstatic to pick up. Some players do favor it as a strong option amongst the mid-tier heroes. Others don't like it at all, but certainly with everything on the line, I think Fritteris would have been looking for something a little bit stronger here.
I did catch out of the corner of my eye. It is Silvername with the Maiev again, probably the strongest hero in the lobby in my opinion. But we do have an Omu as well, which makes for some pretty interesting early game curves. For Fritteris, he did start off with the Malygos hero power and something he hadn't bought to try and see if he could get any special synergy there. But for Silvername, it appears that he has spent the first gold on a roll and now has found a pretty good minion to hero power.
Yeah, which would suggest to me, like, generally my rule for Maiev is if there's no top-tier minion in the 3 gold shop, I will look to hero power something. By which I mean, like, if you could just buy, like, a 2-3 just because it's a 2-3, I think that's fine sometimes, but generally I'll be looking to hero power on turn 1. So I'd imagine Silvername was faced with a pretty mediocre opening shop and then just look to roll to find something a bit more premium to hero power.
Yep, top tier meaning the 2-3s or the tokens. For Silvername, I'm curious if he has that rule about 2-3s as well, because we did see him hero power on a 1-3 before, and not buy necessarily, but that was for a pair. Here again, there's a decision about Murloc, and the order of it, to me, feels like you start off with the Tidehunter and hero power the Rock Pool. That's the way to get the maximal buffs on things, but maybe not the best immediate step.
Yeah, and flipping positioning here because he is going to be up against the Rafam. Generally, it isn't going to matter at this point because the Rafam will almost always have more minions than you anyway, so they're going to have first attack and dictate which of the minions are trades, but it's just good practice to end up doing so anyway.
Did get confirmation that dragons are indeed banned away this lobby, so this is the lobby we've been waiting for, Soddle. All day we've been like, oh, dragons are winning all the time. How is it going to shake out when they're not available? Mechs also removed from the equation, so that's probably one of the middling tribes that are not able to be played right now.
I am seeing a lobby with no dragons and with beasts and murlocs both available. Maximum tokens available, Gia. That's all I'm seeing. I got baited into it once before when I think we had the bans wrong on the screen, but this is the dream Khadgar lobby if anyone is offered those early tier 3 Khadgars.
I can't wait, but we'll see. Personally, I'm more of a do it with golden brands instead of Khadgar because it's a little bit less complicated, but I can only do that when I'm Reno because I never get golden brands.
I'm sorry, how often do you just get a golden brand? What world do you live in, Gia? Oh my goodness.
I just don't have the APM to do it in any other method. Okay. But we are going to see Show now picking up another Murloc Tidehunter, which means he has tokens for days. And that is one of the benefits you get from Rafam, giving you a lot of consistency and the potential to triple, like Show is able to do right now. But maybe he's going to hold on to that for a little bit longer and try and power spike.
Yeah, I actually kind of like the greed here, honestly. Like, what he can do is triple this token and then not play the token this turn and just hold on to it for the sake of a 2-2 and a 3-drop on his board. But I respect the opportunity still. Like, Show has been on a losing streak up until this point, so just playing out his curve here, especially if you told me I was going to hit a Felfin Navigator off the triple, I would absolutely have taken the 3-drop Discover there.
It's true. I tend to think that when you have this type of Murloc start, you can either greed it out and triple going into a 5-drop, like you were mentioning, or just take the 3-drop because there's some pretty good outcomes with either the Felfin Navigator or the Cold Light here with a Murloc start. And I think the additional stats are a big deal here to make sure he doesn't take too much damage from Yogg, which definitely is a hero you can expect to put a lot of stats on their early minions.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think the way this fight is going to pan out, Sho will be very pleased with his decision because he is now going to tie this fight, which he probably would have lost if he greeted in. He actually got a decent steal as well with the Overseer. He does have an Imprisoner on his board to be able to receive that buff, so very successful round overall for Sho.
Wow, and for Rogojin, another triple also available, but how are we going to approach this? Because normally as Shinvala, if you level here, you have to sell one more to buy, and the thing he wants to sell is the thing that he has to triple.
Yes. There's also the ludicrously greedy line that you could approach this from, where you actually buy both Elementals but don't sell them. So you look for the double triple, because at that point, if you find another Elemental, you can triple the Elemental and then sell the golden Elemental, which gives you 2 water droplets, which then triples your water droplets. So Rogo could actually try and greed this water droplet triple that he already has in order to roll down for a third Elemental itself.
That is a very interesting line. All I was seeing there is that I wish I were Shinvala right now instead of Omu.
Oh, where's my Shinvala game, Gia? I came here for 2 things, Khadgar games and Shinvala games, and I've got neither.
We do have 2 more days, and this could still be a Khadgar game. Hold on, hope. We do have Malygos facing off against Omu here. The positioning was a bit interesting. I tend to just make a blanket rule that the Fiendish Servants would go first, but I am a lower level player. What do you think about the Fiendish somewhere in the middle?
I actually extremely rarely put Fiendish Servant first. I do like it a lot more somewhere in the middle because there's some minions that you'll almost always get 0 benefit from buffing with the Fiendish Servant. So by having the positioning that he can already probably take 1 value trade with the 7/5, and then from that point try and add attack to some of his smaller minions further down the line after that trade has already happened. So I kind of like the positioning that Fritrus went for that round.
And he does get to triple the minion in question into a premium 5-drop brand Bronzebeard. I used to be a Lightfang gamer as well when Collins mentioned that Lightfang back in the days of Patchwork being really strong was the meta. That was also the one that I lived for, just AFK as soon as you get your Lightfangs with a bunch of different minions on board. But nowadays, it definitely feels like Bran is just faster and more flexible.
Yeah, I do look back kind of fondly on that early metagame as well, where we all thought we'd figured Battlegrounds out. It was like, yeah, you just triple into a 5-drop and get Lightfang. That's how you play. That's just all you have to do. Just the game has come so far since those days. It's insane.
Given that there's so few minions on board, I'm not surprised to see the Fiendish go first now, and also has that potential of buffing either the Selfless Hero or the Brand by that point, both of which are good targets because otherwise they didn't have enough attack to really trade down anything.
Absolutely, yep. And does get the eventual snipe on the War Leader, but if Fritrus had been able to get there early, that could have been the big difference between winning and losing this fight. But however, both Fritrus and Sho are in very good positions this game. Fritrus has plenty of health and a brand to his name, whereas Sho is just very, very strong for this period of the game with a lot of potential scaling with that double crowd favorite, but no real comp to build into yet apart from the potential of that Murlocs, which now having picked up a top spin, this is actually a pretty good position again for Sho.
It's true. I think he has the time to, as Collins put it, organically get a brand, just spend all the gold and get the 5 and search for it that way. But he also has the flexibility to maybe find it through the pairs because he has those 2 crowd favorites and the 2 Murlocs. And speaking of another pair gamer, XQN as well.
There's an even better option that you haven't even covered yet, Gia, because his partner has a brand and he is Rafal.
Oh.
So as soon as they queue into each other, that means he also has a brand. They could potentially engineer a situation where Sho's first attack would kill nothing, and Fritrus' first attack suicides the Bran into one of his minions, which would guarantee giving a Bran over to the Rafarm hero power.
That is a really good spot, and maybe Sho didn't know it quite so early when he went for that triple, but he'll be very happy that he committed to Murloc so early. For XQN, though, definitely looking quite fine this turn as well. Again, it looks like all about whether the demon can get a snipe on the war leader. but now that's no longer an option with this Divine Shield hit. I think it's not a big deal for the Yogg player to be taking a small loss here.
Yeah, agreed. Looks like the Yogg took, Delicious on the Yogg took a big push just to find himself the brand of his own, so I think he was probably expecting to take a loss that fight, and he will be very comfortable with his situation.
Oh, it honestly feels inefficient to take a war leader, I was gonna say, when you were already on a certain tavern and just buying a tier 2 minion, but you immediately picks up a triple there. You're gonna be looking for a Bran of his own. But Sho now has a chance, because he's hit the triple, to find Bran as well, even before he goes into his team.
And he's actually going to blow straight past it and go for the 6 here, which I do like. He hits the Amalgadon. The benefit of doing it this way is you discover a 6, which, you know, in a vacuum is potentially more powerful, gives you more immediate power, and then you also are just on Tavern 5, so you now have the ability to just roll into that brand naturally on the following turns. But I also wonder how much of this decision is influenced by what I was talking about before, where he knows as long as he's alive and his partner is alive, eventually he can get his brand, as long as they just queue into each other at some point.
Bootylicious did pick up the brand for himself, and he now has Bagurgle with the Murloc. So it's already like a Murloc lobby. I also wanted to note that for Sho, he did get the poison on the Amalgadon, but not Divine Shield, which is a big deal because mechs are banned from this lobby, so he can't just slap an Annoyo module on it.
Such a big turn here for Bootylicious. He got really huge this turn and really wants to attack first here, and does. That's a crucial clean attack over on the Ginny. It does drop a Gar, though, probably the MVP of the tournament so far, just based on today. Yet again, in the previous 2 lobbies we just had, we saw giant Gars just absolutely farming.
Yeah, but maybe in a Murloc-infested lobby, it won't quite get so much work done with all the poisonous running around.
Yep.
I also really love the positioning from Bootylicious, putting the most expensive Murlocs and Bran far right, just trying to make sure he gets the most damage in where he can.
Ooh, that's Silvername dead on my Ev, and yep, we come over to the victory spot, but don't take it too hard. There are 8 players. The victory, the consolation speech from Bob at the end there, I'm sure, was doing nothing to quell Silvername's sadness.
Subtle. What else were we expecting with Dragon's banned? Silvername just doesn't have his Calico. No, of course not. He's completely able to go for different comps, just didn't quite work out this time, which means partner Good Dummit will have additional pressure on him now to maintain their lead on the rest of the field. He does have an Amalgadon of his own, which can get quite a few adapts because he's rocking this Menagerie build. Second Genie is huge too.
Yeah, second Genie is huge. So Dummit gets out of the Poisonous. Of course, that doesn't have a minion type attached to it, so is not going to help out with these Amalgadon buffs, and he'll be looking to replace that Poisonous with the Poisonous roll on the Amalgadon here, ideally. Even if he doesn't hit Poisonous, as Gia was just saying a minute ago, it's more important, arguably, to hit Divine Shield in this lobby because you can pick up the Poisonous manually with Murlocs available, but can't pick up the Divine Shield with mechs banned.
Just an interesting way to deal with this board space because, honestly, you want to get all of the value off of the lifetime, but you can see there, it was essentially floating 2 gold, which he spent on 2 more rolls just to make sure he could get all of the buffs in immediately.
Sorry, what is this board? Golden Unstable Ghoul Baron Rivendare? That's your team? Okay, alright, sure.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what that's trying to accomplish. I'd be very into it if there were mechs in the lobby and maybe try to snipe off Divine Shields. But that seems like the anti-scam comp.
Yeah, no, that's very true, actually. That is very true. That is one way to blow up a board of 1/1 Poisonouses, for sure, no matter how many Divine Shields they have.
Tons of damage coming in because 2 6-drop elementals survive, and that means little rag now for the Nosdormu player.
Ooh. Fishu does have a ton of dance potential here in his hand with the Elemental and the Mug already, and he has a Hydra frozen in the shop. Okay, suddenly things are starting to make more sense. Combination of Battlemaster and Hydra in the shop is very nice here. You can do the Splash Dance on the Battlemaster, and then I would imagine just go all in on the Hydra from that point. Yep, I like this line.
I'm learning so many new jargon. Flash dance? I just want to call that the secondary minion whenever I do the Daryl dancing, but I do prefer the term splash dance. That sounds very, very cool.
Coming soon to a theater near you. Splash Dance.
definitely feels like the glory days of Daryl are mostly over, but Fishu is making it work in the same way that you can kind of take advantage of Edwin.
Yo.
Just trying to all in on a cleave is a big deal.
What's happening here? There must be something scammy we can do with Parrot, Golden Ghoul, and Baron, right? Like,
I mean, could, but it would involve selling off the infested wolf to guarantee that you want the ghoul scams, but I don't think you really want the ghoul scams.
Yeah. Alright, you're right. Tournament mode, Gia. Tournament mode. Sorry. I'm trying to have too much fun. I apologize. There's way too much on the line right here.
Okay, the Hydra is not going to be able to get a hit on the middle of the comp, despite the Ghoul and Baron's best efforts, which means that the poison minion will remain intact.
Yeah, there's still a chance to snipe it like that before it interacts with the Battlemaster, though, which is now huge because the Battlemaster can contest almost the rest of this board single-handedly now. This is going to be a very clean win for Fishu, and it's going to be a huge hit for Show. He's dead! That's
lethal.
17! Oh no!
Oh no, a disaster! Show didn't get your teammate Grand Dream, even though that would have been really, really cool to see. And that means there's only one more Murloc player remaining in the lobby and already has even more Murlocs in the pool since Show has been eliminated.
And it also means now Fritterus and Show out again in bottom 4, 7th and 6th place respectively, and I think now, Gia, that might just be their chances of making it to top 2 and making it through to Sunday have been flushed away at this point.
Really tough because this is only the 7th lobby and they still have to play out through another one, but we will see if they can maybe just tie it or just get that little bit closer and close the gap out. For XQN here, a bit painful to not find the triples. I do think he was holding on to some of these pairs for a bit longer, but I completely agree that it's more important to just utilize the Nomi while you can.
Yeah, it does feel like the way this lobby was going that he was going to end up bringing a Gar to a Murloc fight, which was not going to be a good idea, but actually the Murloc players have just been dying one by one, so maybe there is the opportunity to still get some big value out of this giant minion.
The issue, though, if you're facing down a Daryl, it's kind of expected that they would have either a big cleave or a big Divine Shield minion, or both. So positioning, having not poison first, expecting a Divine Shield makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, especially in this lobby with mechs banned, right? Like, the chances of a Divine Shield taunt specifically are so much smaller when mechs aren't in the lobby because you would have to have, like, Argused up a Divine Shield minion specifically as opposed to just having, like, bought a giant Annoyer module and smacked it on one of your minions. So I like leading with the big attack still.
Oh, that last trade, 1 in 3 there for the Daryl to deal lethal, but it did end up tying because he cleaned up the little tokens before trading into the Hydra.
Yo, Tavern Tempest for the Omu off of the Golden Genie at this point. And the way these trades are going to go down, this is now a huge attack on this Gar, and he finds it! Gets the VT to lock down the tie.
Omu definitely has some potential to keep scaling. It feels like a lot of players have just picked up some Murlocs here and there, but it's Bootylicious that is really committed to more Murlocs on the board. He's looking for more Toxfins to slap on the Toxfin he already has, strangely enough. I've never Toxfinned a Toxfin.
You've never Toxfinned a Toxfin? Oh, Gia, you haven't lived. You Toxfin the Toxfin and then you Golden the Toxfin to pick them up and then Toxfin something else. Oh, it's beautiful.
That does sound like a pandemic in disguise.
There it
Primal
is.
Fin. Cycling the Gas Coiler. Yeah, not particularly useful here. Algadon.
Second Amalgadon, second Felfin as well. Did he not want to sell the Felfin back into the shop before he rolled? He ended up hitting another one anyway, so it absolutely did not end up mattering, but I assume it was optimal to do that first in that position.
Yeah, I would guess as well. The only reason for holding onto it is if you want that as a potential toxin target. Here we go. Stats for Days. Did he fit in the hero power? Yep. Just to make sure you have the most gold available for the next turn. I'm not sure if the positioning is where he wanted to be exactly.
No, me either. I'm not sure if he really had time to execute everything he wanted to do that turn either, because he still had plenty of gold left to spend and cycle, and he has this Felfin in hand. There is an argument to say he's deliberately holding onto this Felfin for triple potential. He doesn't just want to necessarily just straight up play it and sell it, thinking he was strong enough to take this fight down. But certainly I think the pressure of the rope was felt there towards the end of that turn. It was one of those troll turns I was talking about earlier, right, where you get to the end of the rope and then suddenly the Discover Murloc appears and you suddenly have to do like 9 or 10 things at the very, very end of your turn.
Yeah, that really means it's a big advantage for Battlegrounds players who are able to make snap decisions, even if it feels like you have a lot of time later on. If you can go by rote almost on these simple decisions, it saves you time for when you get to a more unusual situation. But oh my goodness, 3 players knocked out?
Yo! Straight
somebody
down!
lost to a ghost.
Straight down to the one-on-one between Butterlicious and Rogojin on the Omu now. Which means, I believe it was the Daryl, possibly, that lost to the Ghost in that position. The Fishu on Daryl with that bizarre Baron Rivendare comp just did not end up getting the job done.
Well, that is unfortunate to see, because at least it could have removed all of the Divine Shields from these Murlocs before dying,
Yeah.
but we do end up with a one-on-one, as what you were saying. I'm not actually sure what 6-drop he wants at this point, because he certainly doesn't want to triple the Amalgadon.
Myexna.
Pick a poison?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Widelicious's line did pay off from the previous turn. Again, I don't necessarily think it was like 100% considered because he was roping, but the decision certainly to hold on to the Felfin Navigator pair has paid off pretty big for him here.
And he is still fishing for another Toxfin to slap on the second Amalgadon. Doesn't find it, but picks up a Ghoul. I like it in the second position. Like, a newer player might think that, oh, both Divine Shields first before the Ghoul, but it's highly unlikely that you have the time for all of that to go off. So you want the Ghoul second, because after your first Divine Shield goes off, then you can try and get the things on all of your opponent's shields.
That's insane! Death Rattle ordering goes off first. That Ghoul does actually get some work done. It does mean this Selfless Hero is going to proc, though, and get multiple Divine Shield buffs again. But Widelicious's Myexna did value trade, meaning that it is still there as a poisonous minion, and actually Widelicious is going to win this one quite comfortably with multiple huge minions still remaining.
Yeah, and the tokens are such a big deal as well to deal the damage at the very end. Back in the days when Gentle Megasaur was still in the pool, you wanted the Holy Trinity of Divine Shield, Poison, and Death Rattle. It's not quite lethal damage, but it's also just a big deal that it is the Macaw and not Baron, because this does have a small failure rate of whether you trigger the Death Rattle of the Selfless on itself, and then suddenly you might not get the actual Death Rattle on the Selfless.
So Rogo has to adjust here. He should realize that his Gar is almost completely pointless at this point because he is dealing with poisoned Murlocs on the other side. So if he can find a Baron or just another poisonous minion to sub in, which he does already have with the Deadly Spore, he can use that to fall back on and basically roll away all of his gold looking for more tech cards, which is exactly what he ends up doing. I think he's played this turn correctly. It's just unfortunate not to find anything.
Yeah. Really good turn of looking for all his outs. But honestly, even if he did hit the Baron, I don't think it was looking all that good for him because he didn't have an answer to the tokens that spawn off of the Amalgadons on the other side either.
Yeah.
His own Amalgadon does not have the Death Rattle.
Yeah, that is a really good point.
It's a great shot, though, and for Rogojin, it's a big deal that he ends up in the second spot because he's around that middle point where they still have contention to catch up to Silvername and Godummit's team. It's only Sho and Fritterus that have fallen too far behind now to catch up.
So I like this gambit from Rogo, though. He's going to try and use his own Wind Fury minion to snipe away the Unstable Ghoul before he sets up any of his Divine Shields, and then try and get maximum value out of his board that way. But obviously the downside of that is what you just saw, where he exposes his back line for multiple attacks before he actually starts getting the Divine Shields up. But actually, this has worked out about as perfectly as it could have done, but as Gio was mentioning in the previous shop phase, the tokens off the Amalgadon are just going to get too much work done here.
Actually, it's tie, though. The tokens... I thought the tokens would make all the difference here, but that positioning was good enough to keep holding on. The sad thing for Rogojin is, how does this even get better? It's Baron or bust at this point, right?
It does look that way, yeah.
There's also, like you were saying, Wind Fury to try and snipe the Ghoul. You could think about Zap for that purpose, but it's pretty much the same as the Amalgadon.
It is, yeah, basically the same.
Then
The other option is just to look for more minions that summon tokens. Like, I actually think Void Lord is surprisingly strong in these late game situations if you have multiple taunts on your board, just because the 1/3 summoning are kind of similar to what we're seeing from the Amalgadon tokens on the other side. There are a few things to consider for sure. Unstable Ghoul now? Like, the counter Ghoul? Oh...
how do you engineer this so that it kills off their tokens before your Divine Shields go up? I don't think there's any way to guarantee it, but the question here is, can you imagine a situation where it actually plays out in the order you want, and estimate how likely that is? I would just give up and look for Baron, and Rokujin comes to the same conclusion.
Okay. Interesting, he sold the Parrot. I was wondering, like, if he could lose the Guard. I think he'd probably need Argus to lose the Guard, though, so he could at least have some sort of taunt protection. And then, like, maybe play the Selfless really late in his comp, so the Parrot would Divine Shield everything once, and then you try and high roll with the Selfless hero Divine Shielding everything again if you got a good attack order. But he actually ends up just straight up swapping the Parrot for the Baron.
Well, it's a good point you bring up, because I was thinking at first that Baron with Parrot and Selfless Hero has that failure rate where you trigger the Divine Shield on the Selfless itself, but maybe he needed the actual high roll of the first Selfless going on all the poison minions, and then the second poison going on and refreshing their Divine Shield.
Oh!
Wow!
Okay, that's really great sequencing for Rogo, because the tokens are now out in a position where they absolutely don't matter at all. And this is going to be a big win for Rogo. That's going to be, what, 13 damage going through at this point? So now both players are just one hit away from victory. This is the closest top 2 that we've seen in any of our lobbies so far, Gia.
Insane, but the thing is, I also just don't know how it gets better unless he can triple the Baron at this point. We take a look at Bootylicious' perspective now. It wasn't a big deal that the Myaxna didn't survive instead of War Leader, because he would have still ended within a breakpoint of dying to one hit.
Yep. Bootylicious now does have another Ghoul in his hand, which makes sense as to why he felt comfortable in getting out of it on the previous turn, because he can now get back into it if he needs to. And I think based on the way that last fight went, he might still feel like the Unstable Ghoul is something that is beneficial to him. Although the way that the board is set up right now with the Selfless Hero and with the Amalgadon attacking first, the Ghoul actually doesn't do that much for Bootylicious right now.
True, and he also probably didn't want to give up the Deadly Spore if he was going for that. But now he hits the Talk Spin, which he was looking for any of these 2 remaining Murlocs. That I guess it has more value going on the Divine Shield minion. So difficult to come up with the ideal positioning, and just think of what the ideal minion is for situations like this. And I would pay good money to see the stats on either side for the win percentages and how they change between board to board.
Yeah, I do think there were a lot of opportunities on both sides just to be able to, you know, pick up sticky minions, Divine Shield, like 1/1 Divine Shield Taunt, and other token-based minions that can potentially just mess with some Divine Shields, especially from Bootylicious' side, because Rogo has this board where the Divine Shields are going to appear at weird points, right? With you see him going off right now, but I think knowing that you have the Unstable Ghoul, the way that the board was lined up, this should work out pretty well, but there's so much value being found before the Divine Shields get dealt with. And now all the tokens bite the dust as well.
Yeah, the other taunt messing with everything, but he still does end up with 1 Amalgam with the Death Rattles, finally able to close out the game. That was too close for comfort, and the mind games with having ghouls on either sides get really, really deep. All I want to know is whether that golden ghoul we saw in the mid game was an omen for this end game.
I mean, apparently so, yeah. That without the Daryl dying, who ended up dying to the ghost with Golden Ghoul and Baron Rivendare, some of those ghouls might not even have been there in the late game for those players to pick up, right? Because Daryl just would have been hoarding them all with his Golden Ghoul for no reason. So certainly, I will thank the Daryl for dying there to give us that very interesting late game scenario where we can see ghouls teched in from both sides. But I think that was a good lobby to kind of tick off the list for the day, right? Because we hadn't seen that so far, where we got to a top 2 and it was a real like back and forth with both players looking for the dream tech card in their final rolls on Tavern 6. I think that was a really nice iteration of Battlegrounds to be able to take a look at.
True, and that does mean we end up with a straight tie now between the yellow and green team. Bootylicious' win is absolutely huge because now the yellow team has picked up a total of 3 first places. Team Green's consistency means that they're still tied and not far behind is Team Purple, just 2 points below. And really, it's only the white team that we can count out at this point.
Yep, and again, crucial spots are top 2, because top 2 goes through to Sunday to play out the playoffs day on Sunday. So Rogo and the Fishu do have a little bit of work to do. They're going to need to outperform either green or yellow by a margin of 3 points to get the clean victory here going into our final lobby. It does seem like we are waving goodbye, unfortunately, to the white team, but there's still plenty to play for going into this final lobby now with only 2 spots on Sunday on the line.